Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. When I accepted the job aboard the container ship Midnight Maelstrom, I thought I'd be stacking boxes, checking manifests, and maybe enjoying quiet nights at sea. The pay was unbeatable, $50 an hour, plus free meals and lodging. It seemed like a no-brainer for someone like me, drowning in student loans and eager for a fresh start. The ship itself was massive, a floating labyrinth of steel with rust-streaked walls and rows of towering containers, like silent monoliths above the deck. The first thing I noticed was the unsettling stillness, as though the ship itself was holding its breath. Captain Roar, a grizzled man with a weathered face and an unnervingly calm demeanor, greeted me. Handing over a printed list of rules, he said, "Follow these. Don't question them, don't break them, and you'll be fine." I unfolded the paper, expecting standard safety protocols. Instead, my stomach dropped. Rules for working aboard the Midnight Maelstrom 1. Do not open any containers, no matter what sounds you hear coming from them. 2. If you hear screams between midnight and 3 a.m., stay in your cabin and lock the door. 3. Never, under any circumstances, look overboard at night. 4. If you see a crew member who doesn't look quite right, report them to the captain immediately. 5. If the ship's lights flicker, find the nearest emergency lamp and stay still until they stabilize. 6. If you hear knocking on your cabin door after 2 a.m., do not open it. I laughed nervously, asking if this was some sort of hazing ritual for new crew members. The captain's expression didn't budge. "You'll understand soon enough," he said before walking away. The first couple of days were uneventful. My tasks were straightforward: inspect containers for damage, report anything suspicious, and assist the deckhands with basic maintenance. The crew was friendly but tight-lipped about the rules. Whenever I brought them up, they'd shrug or change the subject. Then came the first night I heard the screams. It started around 12:30 a.m. I was lying in my bunk, flipping through an old paperback, when a distant, bone-chilling wail shattered the silence. At first, I thought it was the wind whistling through the containers, but the sound grew louder, closer, desperate, like someone being tortured. I froze, remembering the second rule: stay in your cabin and lock the door. My heart pounded as I scrambled to twist the lock into place. The screams didn't stop. They were joined by guttural growls and the screech of claws raking against metal. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal, a stowaway, maybe a wolf or a big cat. But deep down, I knew better. No animal made sounds like that. The next morning, I approached a deckhand named Miguel, a burly guy with a no-nonsense demeanor. I asked about the noises. His face went pale. "You followed the rules, right? You locked your door?" I nodded. "What's in those containers?" Miguel shook his head. "Don't ask questions you don't want answers to." Later that day, I found myself alone near the stern of the ship, surrounded by rows of containers. The air felt colder here, heavy with a sense of foreboding. Inspecting a dented container, I thought I heard faint whispers. "Help me." I jumped back, my pulse racing. It wasn't just a whisper. It was a child's voice, weak and trembling. Pressing my ear to the steel wall, I heard it again. "Please let me out." A chill ran down my spine. The rules were clear, but every instinct screamed at me to open the container. What if a child was really trapped inside? As my hand hovered over the latch, a shadow fell across me. I turned to see the captain, his piercing gaze locked onto mine. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded, unable to speak. "Rule number 7. 1, he said firmly, do not open any containers no matter what. I wanted to argue, to demand an explanation, but something in the captain's expression stopped me. There was fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for me. That night, the screaming returned. It was louder this time, closer, as if someone or something was right outside my cabin door. The sound was unlike anything I'd ever heard, agonized, guttural, almost inhuman. I stayed rooted to my bunk, clutching the emergency lamp mentioned in the rules. The ship's lights flickered above me, casting erratic shadows across the room. As the noises intensified, a new sound emerged. Scraping. It was like nails dragging along metal, moving slowly down the corridor and pausing every few seconds. My breath caught when I realized it was coming closer. "Don't open the door," I reminded myself. "Don't even look at it." Suddenly, a loud knock shattered the silence. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. My blood ran cold. I stared at the door, half expecting it to burst open, but it didn't. The knocking came again, this time harder, as if whatever was out there knew I was inside. The air grew thick, suffocating. I gripped the lamp tighter, resisting the primal urge to yell, "Who's there?" Eventually, the noises faded, leaving an eerie silence behind. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I stumbled onto the deck, bleary-eyed and shaking. Miguel was coiling a rope near the bow, his usual stoic expression replaced by something darker. "You look like hell," he said, barely glancing at me. "I heard something. It knocked on my door," I replied, my voice trembling. Miguel froze. He looked me in the eye. "It knocked? How many times?" "3, I said. He exhaled sharply, his grip tightening on the rope. "You're lucky. If it knocks 4 times, it means it's chosen you." "Chosen me for what?" I asked. Miguel didn't answer. He muttered something in Spanish under his breath and walked away. Later that day, I confronted the captain again. "I need to know what's going on," I said, trying to hide the desperation in my voice. "What's in those containers? What's knocking on our doors at night?" Captain Rohr leaned back in his chair, studying me with his piercing gaze. "You signed up for this job knowing the risks," he said. "The rules are there to keep you alive. Follow them, and you'll make it to the end of the voyage." "That's not an answer," I snapped. His expression hardened. "Some questions don't have answers you want to hear, kid. Focus on your work, and let the ship take care of the rest." I wanted to push further, but the look in his eyes silenced me. That night, I locked my door as soon as the clock struck midnight. Sitting on the edge of my bunk, the emergency lamp glowing dimly in the corner, I listened as the ship groaned and creaked with the waves. At 1:15 a.m., the screaming started again, accompanied by loud, frantic banging that echoed through the corridors. Holding my breath, I strained to pinpoint the source. It seemed to be coming from the deck above mine. Curiosity got the better of me. Grabbing the lamp, I crept to the door and pressed my ear against it. The pounding grew louder, more erratic, like something massive was trying to break free. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered violently, plunging everything into darkness. My heart leapt into my throat as I fumbled to switch on the lamp. Its pale beam lit the room, but it did nothing to ease my fear. The pounding stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then came a low growl, deep and guttural, like a beast stalking its prey. It was followed by the unmistakable sound of something dragging itself down the corridor outside. I froze, tightening my grip on the lamp. The dragging stopped, directly in front of my door. "Chris." The voice was raspy, barely a whisper, but it made my blood run cold. How did it know my name? "Chris, open the door." I backed away, my mind racing. It couldn't be a crew member. No one sounded like that. "Chris." The voice grew more insistent, more menacing. I clenched my fists, willing myself not to move. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently to one side, throwing me to the floor. My lamp rolled across the room, its beam casting dizzying patterns on the walls. When the ship steadied, I scrambled to my feet and grabbed the lamp. The voice outside was gone, but I didn't dare open the door to check. The rest of the night passed in agonizing silence. The morning sun barely pierced the dense gray clouds as I stepped onto the deck. The ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, a vast, indifferent expanse that mirrored the unease churning inside me. The events of the night replayed in my mind, the growling, the voice that knew my name, the ship's sudden lurch. I found Miguel near the engine room, muttering curses as he worked on a stubborn valve. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. He looked up, his face shadowed by exhaustion and something else, fear. "You need to stop asking questions," he said. "No," I snapped. "I deserve answers. What was outside my door last night? Why do the containers sound like they're alive?" Miguel sighed, wiping grease off his hands. "You ever hear about the SS Orang Medan?" I frowned. "No." "It's an old ghost story," he explained. "A ship found adrift in the 40s. The entire crew was dead, their faces frozen in terror. They say it was cursed cargo, something unnatural in the hold." He glanced around as if the walls themselves were listening. "The ship? It carries things that shouldn't exist. Things no one else will transport." "That's insane," I said, though my conviction wavered. Miguel leaned in, lowering his voice. "What's insane is thinking you'll survive this job if you keep poking around." I wanted to dismiss him, but his words lingered. That evening, the atmosphere felt heavier, like the ship itself was bracing for something. The crew worked in tense silence, avoiding eye contact as they went about their tasks. As night fell, the screams began earlier than usual. This time they weren't distant. They echoed from multiple directions, surrounding me as I stood frozen near the rows of containers. I wasn't supposed to be outside after dark, but I'd stayed late to finish an inspection. Now every instinct screamed at me to run back to my cabin. Then I heard it, a dull thud coming from one of the nearby containers. Rule number 1, do not open any containers. But the thudding continued, rhythmic and deliberate, as if whatever was inside knew I was there. "Help," a voice whimpered. It sounded human, weak and desperate. I took a step closer. The container was streaked with rust, its metal surface vibrating slightly with each thud. "Please, it's so dark in here." My hand hovered over the latch. The rules flashed through my mind, but the voice was so real, so convincing. Before I could decide, a shadow moved in the corner of my vision. I turned sharply, my breath catching. Standing at the far end of the row was a man, or what looked like one. His face was obscured in the dim light, but his posture was unnatural, his head tilted at an odd angle. "Hey!" I called out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it took a slow, shuffling step toward me. "Chris?" The voice was wrong, like two people speaking in unison, one of them badly out of sync. I backed away, my heart pounding. The figure moved closer, its gait jerky and uneven. As it stepped into the light, I saw its face, or rather, its lack of one. Its features were a grotesque blur, as if someone had smeared them like wet paint. Panic surged through me. I bolted, weaving between the containers as screams and growls grew louder around me. When I finally reached my cabin, I slammed the door shut and locked it. My chest heaved as I pressed my back against the cold steel, trying to catch my breath. The ship's lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness. I fumbled for the emergency lamp, my fingers trembling as I switched it on. Its pale glow barely eased my terror. A loud knock echoed through the cabin. 1, 2, 3. I froze, gripping the lamp so tightly my knuckles ached. The fourth knock never came. Instead, a low growl rumbled from the other side of the door, followed by the sound of claws raking against the metal. "Chris." It was the same distorted voice from the deck. My stomach churned as the scratching grew louder, more frantic. Then, suddenly, as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The silence was deafening, pressing against my ears like a tangible weight. I didn't move until the first rays of dawn crept through the porthole. When I stepped onto the deck that morning, the crew was unusually quiet. Captain Roar called for a meeting, his face grim. "We've got a problem," he said, his voice steady but tense. "One of the containers has been breached." My blood ran cold. Captain Roar's announcement left a heavy silence hanging over the crew. I scanned the faces around me, each one pale, hollowed by fear. Miguel's hands fidgeted nervously, and even the gruff engineer, a man who rarely spoke, looked rattled. "What do you mean by breached?" I asked, breaking the silence. Roar's gaze shifted to me, his eyes dark with worry. "One of the containers, number 9917, its lock was broken sometime last night." A ripple of unease moved through the crew. "That's not possible," Miguel muttered. "Those locks are reinforced." "Possible or not, it's happened," the captain said. "We need to search for any signs of damage or—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Irregularities." "What's inside container 9917? I pressed. Roar's expression tightened. "You don't want to know." But I did, desperately. Every instinct told me that whatever was inside 9917 was connected to the screams, the knocking, and the impossible things I'd seen. The crew split into teams to check the cargo. I was paired with Miguel, who barely said a word as we moved through the maze of containers. The ship groaned beneath our feet, the sound echoing through the narrow rows. "Do you think something got out?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted an answer. Miguel glanced at me, his jaw tight. "If it did, pray it doesn't find us." We reached container 9917. The heavy steel door was slightly ajar, the lock dangling uselessly from its hasp. Deep claw marks raked across the metal, as if something had torn its way out. I felt a wave of nausea. What could even do that? Miguel didn't answer. Instead, he pushed the door open with the barrel of his flashlight. The interior was dark, save for a faint, sickly green glow emanating from somewhere inside. "Stay here," he muttered, stepping inside before I could protest. I stood frozen at the threshold, my pulse racing. The green light flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to move on their own. Suddenly, Miguel stumbled back out, his face ashen. "It's gone," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What's gone?" I demanded. Before he could answer, a blood-curdling scream tore through the air. It was close, too close. Miguel and I exchanged a panicked look before bolting in the direction of the sound. We found one of the deckhands, a young guy named Harris, standing near a stack of containers, his face frozen in horror. "What happened?" Miguel shouted. Harris didn't respond. He just pointed, his hand trembling violently. We followed his gaze to a dark smear trailing across the deck. Blood. It led to a crumpled figure lying at the base of a container. It was one of the crew. His body was twisted at an unnatural angle, his chest torn open as if by massive claws. His eyes stared blankly at the sky, his mouth frozen mid-scream. Miguel cursed under his breath. Harris vomited over the side of the ship. "What the hell did this?" I whispered, my voice shaking. Miguel grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "We need to get inside, now." The rest of the day passed in a haze. The crew was on edge, huddling in groups and whispering nervously. Captain ROR ordered everyone to stay below deck after sunset. "This thing, whatever it is hunting us," he said grimly. "We stick together, follow the rules, and we survive. Understood?" No one argued. That night the ship felt more alive than ever. It creaked and groaned, its metal frame shuddering with each wave. The screams started shortly after midnight, accompanied by heavy thuds reverberating through the corridors. I stayed in my cabin, clutching the emergency lamp like a lifeline, the rules replayed in my mind like a mantra. At 2 a.m., the power cut out. My lamp flickered weakly, casting jittery shadows across the walls. Then I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. They stopped in front of my door. "Chris," the distorted voice was. "Chris, let me in." The voice grew louder, more insistent. I pressed myself against the far wall, shaking my head even though no one could see me. The handle jiggled. "Chris!" The voice deepened, anger seeping into it. The door rattled violently as if something massive was slamming against it. Then, with a deafening crash, the door gave way. I screamed, raising the lamp instinctively. Its faint glow illuminated a towering figure, its form shifting like smoke. Its face, or where a face should have been, was a void, a black hole devouring the light around it. It let out an ear-splitting screech and lunged. I dove to the side, narrowly escaping its grasp. The lamp slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. In the darkness, I felt its presence looming over me, its rancid breath hot against my skin. Chris. The voice was in my head now, a storm of whispers and screams. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. The silence it left behind was suffocating. Curled on the floor, I trembled as adrenaline coursed through my veins. The shattered remains of the lamp glinted faintly in the dim emergency lights which flickered to life moments later. The intercom crackled. Captain R's voice broke through, strained and panicked. "All hands to the bridge. Now." I forced myself to move, my legs unsteady beneath me. The ship groaned ominously as I stumbled through the twisting corridors. Shadows shifted, as if alive, and every sound, every creak, every footstep felt like a warning. By the time I reached the bridge, most of the crew was already there, their faces pale and drawn. Miguel stood near the captain, his eyes darting nervously. Harris was seated on the floor, rocking back and forth. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Captain R turned, his expression grim. "The ship's controls are unresponsive. It's like something or someone has taken over." "We're off course," Miguel added, heading deeper into the Atlantic. A heavy silence fell over the room. "Did anyone else see it?" I asked, my voice shaking. "That thing." Harris whimpered but didn't respond. Captain R nodded grimly. "We've all seen things tonight, Chris, but right now we have to focus on survival." "Survival?" Miguel snapped. "How are we supposed to survive when we're being hunted on our own ship?" "We stick to the rules," Captain R replied firmly. A deep, guttural roar suddenly echoed from below deck, shaking the entire ship. Metallic clangs followed as if something massive was tearing through the containers. Captain R grabbed the intercom. "All crew, secure yourselves immediately. Do not leave your cabins unless—" His command was cut off as the ship lurched violently, throwing us off balance. The roaring grew louder, closer. A low growl rumbled through the walls of the bridge. Then, with a piercing screech, the reinforced glass of the observation window cracked. Outside, the ocean churned violently. Dark shapes moved beneath the waves, massive, indistinct forms that defied logic. "What are those?" I whispered. No one answered. One of the largest shadows surged upward, breaking the surface in a massive spray of water. For a brief moment I saw it, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and tentacles, its many glowing green eyes fixed on us. "It's coming for us," Miguel said, his voice trembling. The creature let out a deafening roar and slammed into the side of the ship, tilting it dangerously. Alarms blared and chaos erupted on the bridge. "We need to abandon ship," Harris screamed. Captain R shook his head. "There's no way off. We're too far from land." Another impact rocked the ship, the floor groaning beneath us. The bridge's main console sparked violently before going dark. Miguel turned to me. "The rules. Maybe we're missing something." My mind raced, recalling the list of instructions I'd memorized but never truly understood. Stay below deck. Follow the captain's orders. Don't open containers. And then it hit me. "What if the rules aren't just for us?" I said aloud. Miguel frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if the rules are for it?" I gestured to the shattered window. "What if by breaking them, by letting whatever was in 9917 out, we invited this thing onto the ship?" Realization spread across the room like wildfire. Miguel swore under his breath, and Rose's expression hardened. "We need to contain it," the captain said firmly. "Whatever got out, we put it back." The plan was reckless, borderline suicidal. While Roe and a handful of crew members distracted the creature near the bow, Miguel and I made our way below deck to locate container 917. The cargo hold was in chaos. Containers lay scattered, many thrown from their stacks, their doors warped or broken. Blood streaked the walls, and the stench of death was suffocating. When we reached 917, I felt an almost tangible wrongness radiating from it. The green glow inside was brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What do we do?" Miguel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I stepped forward, my hands trembling as I reached for the door. "We put it back, whatever it is." The door creaked as I opened it, and a wave of icy air swept over us. Inside, the container was nearly empty, save for a swirling mass of light and shadow suspended in the center. It writhed and pulsed, whispering unintelligible words. Miguel took a step back. "What the hell is that?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but it doesn't belong here." The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as though the entity could sense our intentions. I reached for the locking mechanism, my fingers numb from the cold. Suddenly, the creature's roar echoed through the hold, and the ship tilted violently. Miguel lost his footing, sliding toward the edge of the platform. "Chris!" he shouted, clawing at the metal for a grip. I lunged, grabbing his arm and pulling him back just as the massive creature tore through the wall. Its many glowing eyes locked onto us, its grotesque mouth twisting into a hideous, tooth-filled grin. "Close it!" Miguel screamed. I slammed the container door shut and activated the locking mechanism. The green glow vanished, and the creature froze mid-lunge. For a moment, everything was still. Then the creature let out a guttural, pained howl before collapsing into itself, dissolving into mist. The ship steadied, the groaning of its metal hull finally falling silent. Rowe gathered the remaining crew on the deck. "We survived," he said simply. "But this ship, it's cursed, and we've paid the price for our mistakes." Miguel and I exchanged a glance but said nothing. As the ship limped toward its destination, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The rules had kept us alive, but I couldn't help wondering how many others had sailed these waters, and how many had failed to follow them. The Atlantic swallowed the ship's wake, vast and indifferent.